Hello, everyone. Very warm welcome once again. And I hope you enjoyed the last segment. We are now going to discuss the technology part. And as you understand, it's a technology which basically differentiated this crisis from the previous one. Previously, the crisis used to put the people into pockets of isolations. But I think this time, the physical distancing was converted into a social cohesion. You would have never witnessed this kind of close proximity in the absence of the technology. We are fortunate to have two experts, industry expert CEOs with us. Mudassar Aqil, who leads Telenor Microfinance Bank, and Haroon Kanth, who is country head Teradata, Global Consulting Center, Pakistan. Mudassar and Haroon, welcome. We would like you to share with us how you enabled this success for the overall industry, economy, and the country. So I would like to ask you the question. In the first instance, Mudassar, your organization is well dispersed throughout the country in terms of your clientele and your people. Now, communication was a big challenge, but as a as a technology company, how did you convert this challenge into an opportunity and sustain this crisis?
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be part of the HR Summit. HR fraternity is very close to my heart. I also feel a part of this fraternity because part of my career I've served in CHRO role also, so I can fully understand the challenges and empathize with them, and also understand the power of this role as well. So before I answer your question, let me put things in a little bit of perspective. So I think we are framing our conversation today more so in the context of COVID-19 and its impact and how technology can help and possibly can be a disruptor also. So there are two things which are happening in the world, and they're sort of like coinciding. The first thing is that we are all aware that how COVID-19 has completely disrupted the global economy. And this has been a crisis that nobody had created any kind of business continuity plan for. So everybody had to like think on their feet and come up with solutions to it, including the or HR leadership, because people part is, of course, is the most important part of the equation. The second thing, which was also already had started to happen over the last 10 years, and it has now exponentially increased, is the advent of what we call the fourth industrial revolution, which is what we call the digitalization of the global economy. So Pakistan is still in the early stages of adopting the technology-based disruption to business models and adoption of digitization of our economy. But I think with the COVID-19, it sort of like accelerated the whole adoption of it. So in this context, technology becomes both an opportunity and enabler. So when you're dealing with the COVID-19 kind of a crisis, how do you use technology to get people to work together? How do you use technology to communicate with them? How do you use technology to dispel uncertainty and at the same time try to figure out that how business is not suffering? So more collaborative work and work from home and all of the things that everyone is dealing with. And the other part is also that technology at the same time is now presenting opportunities to completely rethink the way business is done. So right on the heels of it is technology is also coming and disrupting the business model. So when we will return, and Pakistan already, mashallah, is slowly getting back to normalization, we all are aware in our organizations that we are not going back to the same world that we had in 5 months ago. So now everybody is looking at their business models and saying, Well, I mean, things can be done so much more differently by employing technology. So the role of HR in this case, and this is what we have experienced also, and what I've been practicing as well, is how to use number one, first of all, communicate. What's the way forward? uh, Bring people together, give them clarity on what's the roadmap, and then also be a facilitator of change. So they should not, HR leaders should not be sitting on the sidelines and then looking at what business is doing. Rather than, they should be taking an active part in understanding the strategy, and then forming that communication part with the people as a first step. And then the second step is that in this new world, then how will we manage people differently? How will we recruit them differently? How will we retain them differently? So that, in a nutshell, is the new context, in my opinion. So I'll take a pause here.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we'll come back to you. So, Haroon, business continuity planning and its execution, I think it's a key success factor to survive the crisis. From the people management point of view, please share the tips of your success, because Teradata is a technology company. So how have you leveraged, and what is your strength in this area?
Thank you, Zahid Saab. Thank you for the opportunity of being part of this. As Aqil Saab said, the HR fraternity, which is it's great to hear the views that I heard from the FMCG panel as well. And I think before I start off answering you, we need to understand that the statement that is given and normally kind of taken for granted is that with every challenge, there's always an opportunity attached to it. Pakistan, over the period of last 10, 15 years, has been going through a lot of challenges, and technology companies who are operating in Pakistan have been trying to overcome those challenges and have developed tools and methodologies and practices to ensure that we are able to deliver seamlessly to our customers within Pakistan and outside Pakistan as well. And that training, that learning has built that resilience in our people. And I think that has been the key element in ensuring that we continue to deliver successfully, even when we went completely offsite and 100% work from home. So, and this resilience is not about having plans, having a business continuity plan, having a disaster recovery plan. It's not about having those plans. It's about the ability of that organization, of its people, to adapt to a change that comes as a result of whatever the reason is, whether that is terrorism, whether that is COVID or anything else, or a natural disaster. So I think that is what has been one of the key elements that we have been trying to inbuild in our organization, in our processes, in our, in addition to all those collaboration enablement that has happened, that normally happens very quickly in a technology company. But this element of building that resilience to to become adaptable to a change, an unprecedented change, has been something that actually worked in our favor. And nothing on us. It's been the Pakistan's previous 10, 15 years of challenges that made us resilient to that change that came in as a result of COVID.
Wonderful. So you said that you're using these challenges to as a real opportunity. And I think more precisely, the kind of the challenge that you face in Islamabad, it makes you more stronger. And you use a very interesting slogans also to handle those crises. I'll come back to you once again. I'll refer back to Mudassar. So Mudassar, as a CEO, stakeholders management is a big challenge, particularly in this kind of disruptive communication environment, when you have the pressures from the regulators, the community, the customers, and then you have your people also. So performance management definitely is one of the bigger challenges in this entire process, and not just the pure people performance, but from every angle, because you have the investors who have various expectations. So ongoing in that context, what do you have as a key learning point for the industry, how to behave for the stakeholders management?
Well, I think the key is really communicating with clarity. So no matter who the stakeholder is, even if you're communicating with your customers, if you're communicating with your team, if you're communicating with your board, with your shareholders, you have to give them clarity on where we are, what do we need to do, and if there is any problem, let's be upfront and very clear about it, that here's what's not working, here's a challenge. Even if you're communicating with your customers, if you are going to face some disruption in service, there are some challenges that you're facing, people are just a lot more appreciative and willing to give you a lot more time if you are clear in communicating the expectations. The same goes with employees. So it's really the uncertainty and lack of clarity about what the future holds that creates panic, and downward spiral of morale, etc. And I think that's the real key. I would just emphasize, err on the side of over communication in times like this rather than under communication.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Haroon, you use, I think, very exciting kind of terminologies, which you say, Iman, Ishq, and passion. And since we have the participants from around the globe in this summit, so this the actual translation of it is the belief, love, and the passion for the work to overcome the obstacles. So tell us how you have used this, to handle this crisis, and how you've been able to motivate your workforce to work with the optimum performance.
Great. Well, I strongly believe in this mantra that I have been able to come up with based on the last 2 decades of my working with people. Iman Ishq Junoon is all about faith, love, and passion. Now, I'm more of a revolutionary person by heart, and all these policies and practices and the traditional way of managing people is good to have. It helps you maintain those boundaries under which you keep a check and balance on how the organization works. But the real essence of working with people, and since I have a consulting background and I've worked, with people, and consulting is more about how to ensure people come up with those creative juices and are able to do better than how the organizations are doing. It's very important to kind of motivate those people to be, doing more than what they can do. It's that untapped talent that normally gets kind of hidden up because of the policies and the procedures and the confinements in which people have to work. And I personally believe that if you are able to instill the fact that an individual, if an individual has a faith in the ability that the person has, or the faith in the ability to achieve and an ability to deliver, or whatever they're doing, if they have the faith in their ability to execute on that, and they're able to do it with the love, and in love you are able to go an extra mile in order to, even if we take the worldly concept of love, where we talk about a person who you are really in love with, you go an extra mile to make that person happy. So if you're in love with the work that you do, you will definitely move that extra mile, and you go that extra mile to achieve, because you have faith in yourself, and the way you do it is the passion. So the triangle of love, faith, and passion. So
Is there an issue with the voice? Haroon, can you hear me? We lost you. All right, Mudassar, I think Haroon may be joining us again because he's lost the connection. Uh, Not a question, but I leave it to you, your discretion, that you have a wider bank industry, the financial industry in the country, and then is the microfinance industry. And from the people governance point of view, that too, keeping in mind the business continuity. Uh, any tip that you would like to give to the audience?
I think one thing that we all need to be now prepared for is the business models will be disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
The old way of doing business is not going to work. I'm already looking at in the chat window, and some people have already inquired about what's going to happen. Are there going to be layoffs, etc.? And I think we should be prepared in conceptually, and we need to understand one thing, that anything which is repetitive in nature
Mm-hmm.
and not real value added in a process, that those jobs will be gone forever. And this is going to happen in a matter of months. If we're lucky, probably in a matter of 1 or 2 years. But I think it will happen much more faster because people have understood that technology is not a taboo, it's not scary, and the business models are going to change. So we need to now really understand in terms of what needs to happen in acquiring new skills, reskilling our existing people, because there will be more jobs that technology will create, but they will be different in nature. And so HR really needs to, HR professionals here really need to understand the value creation process in their business. That's the one thing that I find lacking. I see HR leaders and mid-tier professionals get too immersed in the administrative matters of HR. Those things should be essentially policy driven and empower people on the front line, but they should really understand what we are trying to achieve as an organization, what's the strategy, and then are we prepared for the future. I think that's what everyone should think about. And if they're not thinking, they should compel their leadership to have a dialogue with them in about the future of their company and what it means for them.
Excellent. So what you're pointing out, but I understand that the employment, the pattern is changing. There are new skills which are coming up, and there's a new demands, and we have to be conscious of the upcoming trends and adapt accordingly. Okay, thank you so much, Haroon. I think you were interrupted, so we would like you to continue your thoughts so that we can go to the question answer session.
My apologies.
No problem,
Bad
sir.
connection, technology challenges. So yeah, so what I was trying to tell was that you need to tap onto the human element. And what organizations have been traditionally doing is trying to create those boundaries in which we want individuals to contribute. But with the new millennial generation that's coming in, confinement is not in their dictionary. So in order to ensure that the way they think needs to be tailored and channeled into an organization's success, you need to ensure that they are ignited. And the best way to ignite, I personally believe, is to give them the faith in, to put some faith in them, give them the ability to learn, to adapt quickly, to love love the work they're doing, and at the same time show them the future, which will build up the passion in them to achieve the organization objective. So that is the crux of how this philosophy works. Again, it's a very detailed thing, but I think with this change in the way of work that has been brought in, and I like to add something to what Mudassar has mentioned before, and I just like to quickly add there, is the fact that, and a lot of questions have been put around it, this is still a time where a lot of assessments are being done. We cannot at this point in time claim to the fact that work from home is going to be the absolute new norm, whether offices are going to be closed and people are going to be shifted to home. It's still evolving. We're still learning. And all of this information that we're collecting over the last 3 to 4 months are going to help decision makers come to a point, I believe in the next 2 to 3 months, to see how the new organization phase will look like.
So the new perspective that I'm getting over here from your side is that because historically we see most of the people evaluating and assessing the millennials, and you're talking about the focusing on their not just weaknesses but the strength in order to get the best out of them. All right, interesting discussion. With this, we would like to have a further round of dialogue, and for that matter, I would request all the participants to put their comments in the chat box. Please write your views, all kind of opinions. And I would also request the speakers to please keep an eye on the chat box and feel free to comment. Feel free to share your opinion according to the viewpoint of the participants. So participants, please go ahead. Have your say in this summit, and it's an opportunity to get in touch with each other and learn from each other. You have 2 to 3 minutes for this.
I think there are a couple of interesting comments being made. So if you like, I can
please.
Take on a couple of them while
Absolutely.
People are still typing. So I think one question is on comp and benefits. So how they will change. And then there is another interesting comment on employee engagement. So yeah, so real quick, I think there will be increasingly larger role of outsourcing of work from organizations. So anything which is not your core competence, I think increasingly will be outsourced, because if your own employees can do that job sitting at home, then essentially anyone can do it. So if it's not the core competence to the business that you're in, you can always find someone who can do it probably faster and cheaper, because they will be doing it for a lot of companies at a much higher volume and a lot more economically. So that will have an impact on how you will compensate your people. So you will have people who will be skills and getting the job done, probably in collaboration with outside consulting and various other outsourced employees. So people who will be inside the organization will be a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more resourceful in terms of achieving the end objective by utilizing the various resources at their disposal within and outside the organization. So that's broadly one thing that I see. The another interesting, I think, question somebody raised was the value creation model. I think that's a very broad subject, but a gap that I see all the time in the HR fraternity in Pakistan, at least, is that they don't really conceptually understand that what the business that their organization is, in that business, how real value is created and who is creating that real value. So a lot of time they're really sort of looking at the CEO to tell them what to do, and not advising the CEO in terms of, these are the gaps that we see in terms of the critical talent who is important for the strategy and important for the value creation, and here are the gaps, and here's how we should manage them differently. So that consultative role and strategic role of HR will only come when people will realize that how real value is created. So
Excellent. Excellent. I'll pick up that thread from your conversation with us, sir. In fact, employability. So usually people have a lot of concern when they think that, and they come to know that they're losing jobs, where actually job does not mean the practitioner job. Job also mean consulting job. So that means that if you are outsourcing a business, you would like to give it to some of the organization, which also creates an opportunity. So uh, I would like to refer this thread of question to Haroon, and let us know that how this technology is creating, opportunities for the people in terms of the jobs creation, and what are the kind of the jobs that are coming into the market.
See, the thing, there will always be jobs in the market. The nature of the job will change.
Mhm,
The skill required to do that job will change. Now, if we are not able to reskill ourselves, re-enable ourselves with new skills, we will always see a deficiency in the market in terms of the jobs that you want to do.
mhm,
So the change has to, that's why I said resilience needs is the ability to change. So if we want to be resilient in these times, it
mhm,
starts from us. We need to change our skills.
mhm,
In our organization, we made it very clear that if somebody or anybody in the organization in these COVID times, having ample amount of time because of the less commuting and other barriers, has not been able to develop one alternate skill,
mhm.
has actually failed to capitalize on this time that has this COVID has provided. So
Excellent.
it's extremely important that you have to bring in the change in yourself. You will not be doing the job that you did 6 months back. Period. If you want to accept it, fine. If you don't, then it's your choice. I like to take one question that was put up
Sure.
in this on the side panel, and it said that is the future of HR more on the consultancy side? It's an evolutionary process now. There are HR experts here, and they can comment much better on it. But from the head of the organization, I can let you know one thing very clearly. My organization is around 450 people, and I have only one HR person who is running and maintaining the entire organization relationship from an HR perspective. Why? Because now the new philosophy that we're trying to follow is to devolve people, devolve the HR aspect of the work onto the managers. Because what we used to do traditionally was to consolidate and create an organization which used to do talent management, succession management, change management, and all of those elements were done by the central organization. Now we are devolving that. We're giving that responsibility and ownership to the line managers. And HR is in reality becoming more of an owner of the framework under which organizations are working. So yes, in a way, consultancy is and can be classified as one of the futuristic models that HR becomes more of a consultancy and the actual execution happens by the line managers from the ownership to the delivery part of it.
Brilliant. So Mudassar, you are the complete disruption and the new business model. How do you see the performance management of the people fitting into that model, particularly when you have the people working from home? And within that segment, you have also the females, a significant proportion. I think it's also one of the focus of your organizations. How they adjust in this model performance. Do you have some insight on that?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm already contemplating. I find very little value anymore in setting the annual appraisal process. I think the annual appraisal process is dead. It adds very little value, and I think it. We need a very simple quarterly conversation. Uh, there should be a clear strategy which takes a 3-year view. You adjust it on an annual basis, on a rolling basis, and then you take sort of like a quarterly priorities and you align with your team in terms of, okay, these are the must-win battles for the quarter are these three, and then you check your calibration with the strategy. So I think unless you fix it at the top, you can't really manage an effective performance management low in the lower ranks either. So this is probably more relevant for the CHROs who are listening today, that they should really make that case of realignment at the top with the strategy, and then those performance discussions will become meaningful. Otherwise, these annual performance appraisals, I don't think are really relevant anymore.
So it's more ongoing and real time rather than with a time lag. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
We have 2 more minutes before the closing. I would like to leave it to the judgment of the speakers to pick up at least one question if they wish, and may like to respond to it before we conclude.
If I may just quickly pick up, and Mudassar Saab, please do add to this question, that to the answer here. The question is that, how would you measure and do performance management for people who are working from home versus people who used to work in the office? So my take on this, and please add to it as well, is that first of all, the performance management, the traditional performance management, is no longer valid. It was no longer valid a couple of years back, but now in these times, it's absolutely not valid. So frequent conversations, periodic conversations, setting down short-term goals, which are aligned to your long-term strategic objective, are the key to, key to the performance management of your team members. It's extremely important that you have the ability to listen and to communicate, and that needs to happen on either a monthly, quarterly, whatever is the frequency based on the type of business you are in. So there is no single rule of thumb. A quarterly would work, or a half yearly would work, or a monthly would work. It depends on what kind of a business you are in. But what is important is that the tools that are needed in order to ensure that this conversation happens need to be put in place. Digitization of the process needs to be put in place. And that's the key in order to ensure that there is transparency and there is a uniformity of the way in which it is executed in the organization. Mudassar.
Excellent.
No, I think
Yes,
very well put. I don't have much to add. I think Haroon hit the nail on the head. I think from an HR practitioner standpoint, you have to design these systems which are very simple. Just 2 or 3 things that need to happen, and just give very effective, detailed feedback on it, and frequent conversations. How will you facilitate that? Allow people to use all of these technology tools, whether they're sitting at home or at work, so that they can communicate effectively. I think that's the key.
Excellent. I think this is a very interesting dialogue, but time is always a challenge. So with this, we would like to conclude. And before conclusion, I would like to just summarize. We had a very interesting overall conversation, but the 2 main themes which emerge out of this process, Mudassar Aqil, definitely he's in favor of the complete disruption. Change is already taking place, and we have to go with the change. So technology is a force multiplier for managing the workforce. From the Haroon Kanth point of view, your Iman, Ishq, and Janoon, which he calls belief, love, and passion, are the pillars to overcome any obstacles. So with this, we are going to conclude. Thank you all for your valued participation. I'm once again thankful to the Mudassar and Haroon for sparing their valuable time and being with us to educate us on this important aspect. With this, we would also like to play the shell video again, because it was aborted, and we would like to see you to see it completely. So Mudassar and Haroon, thank you so much. All the best. Take care of yourself.
All the best to all the friends here.